Hey there, Fellowship family. Welcome to your one-stop shop for all things church life. My name is Mark Francis, and I am your host for today. Welcome back. It's been a while for us to post on this Fellowship Family podcast channel, but we're excited to get back in the groove of things. And over these next few weeks, we're going to be talking about how Fellowship Bible Church has been around for 40 years. It was 1980 when it was really founded, and we'll be hearing more about stories over these next few weeks, and specifically for the September 6th worship service, where we'll get a chance to thank God for his faithfulness in our lives and in the life of the church, and hopefully what we can anticipate in the future here at Fellowship Bible Church. And I just want to introduce a couple who I'm here with today because they have a long history with Fellowship Bible Church and have lots of great things and stories to share and some insight to where Fellowship Bible Church has been. This is Rick and Sharon Lumpp. How are you guys?
Good.
Now, I have to say this because when I first met you guys, I heard the word lump, and it makes me think, is there a history to that? And you might have to spell it for us, and where does that name come from?
It's a German name.
German, okay.
Probably has been Americanized with the spelling. It's L-U-M-P-P.
Double P.
Double P.
Yeah. And I'm sure
when you're a grade schooler, you don't want to say PP. So you learn to say double P.
And so, Sharon, did that name surprise you when you met Rick? Did that kind of take you for surprise there of what am I getting into here with this name Lump?
No, because I didn't like my maiden name either.
No, well, now you have to tell us, what's the maiden name?
It was Fusen.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting as well. And what's the nationality and heritage of that?
It's Dutch.
Dutch. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A couple good Europeans over there. Neat. Well, Rick, I know that you have a long history, and you too, Sharon, of kind of serving and participating here in Fellowship Bible Church. Just give us kind of some of your perspectives of what you saw in the early days. First of all, kind of when did you first started attending? That'll give us kind of a background of where we're coming from here.
Well, our first Sunday here was August 7th, the first Sunday of August in 1983.
83. Wow.
And we had moved here from Ohio and had been to a few churches up there with some not so good experiences, but had come to a fairly good experience in one church just before we moved here. And we came to fellowship at the school. Mm-hmm. And the first people that we met were Margaret and Charlie Richardson. They met us at the door and then took us around and introduced us to various people. And then later took us out to lunch. So
wow.
It was such a positive experience that after that first Sunday, we were hooked.
That's, what, I think that is going to be a common theme, that we're going to hear the name Margaret and Charlie Richardson. So just some anticipation for the future. We're going to hear from them even on September 6th, but they're one of the founding kind of fathers, founding members, founding families of Fellowship. And they're still here today doing the same thing, and it's just neat to see how God has used certain people in the life of the church. So 1983, that was a long time ago. So then how did you then say, okay, this is our home, this is where we're going to start to serve and get plugged in? Because you obviously have a vocation. What was your job of choice back in 1983? What
was I doing in 83?
Service master?
I was in the restoration business with a company called Service Master and Forest Hills Associate, which was a company my family had started and had been working with that on and off ever since I was a teenager, or various facets of that.
Got it.
And when the military came along and took me, I got a temporary reprieve from that, but up until the time we moved here to Winchester, I had been doing that kind of work.
Okay.
I didn't become a teacher, which I retired from now after 20 years, until I was almost 40 years old. So.
Really? So you started teaching when you were 40? Okay. Yeah. And that's what you got hooked on, was teaching, having that heart to pass knowledge on to others.
I had gone to college for 2 years and was in a pre-law program, and when I came here, 20-some years after that, it was nice to find out that I could get a lot of that credit transferred, and so it
Neat.
shortened my my years up for getting my degree. And so I started teaching then.
Okay. And Sharon, how about you? What's your passion? What kind of keeps you going every single day, especially even back then? I mean, you guys have a family, you have children.
Yes. Well, my careers have changed over the years.
Uh-huh.
I was going into nursing when we were in Ohio. I had worked at a hospital for 7 years. And when we came here, I worked for the family business, doing bookkeeping and things like that. Then we did foster care, and I was home doing that, and we adopted 4 children.
Right.
And so I was home doing that, and then got into child care, got out of foster care and started doing child care, and I worked at Braddock Street for 12 years. And now we work just as hard. We take care of a 1.5-year-old and 2.5-year-old grandchildren.
Wow.
50 hours a week. So
that is significant full-time
yes.
work and duty right there.
Uh-huh.
That's great, though. I mean, seeing that, okay, teacher, heart to kind of pass on knowledge, child, foster, family, it's just neat to have kind of your backgrounds and skills to bring to the church body. And so walk us through kind of how your personality and how your gifts kind of led into serving here at FBC.
Well, early on, the church is very small. We didn't have staff or pastoral positions that
Right.
we have now. So Sharon guided the nursery for a while. I was the first custodian the church had. First of all, it was volunteer in the
Right.
beginning, but then
Yeah.
it was a paid part-time position later
Yeah.
on. And singing, of course. I've been involved in the singing as much as I could, as much as they had in the beginning. When we first met at the school, our singing times, our worship time was actually called prayer and praise time.
Okay.
And it was very informal with a few guitars and lead singers and congregational singing. And we shared prayer requests and praises and needs and so forth during that time as well. So it was a mixture of singing and speaking, and it was very enjoyable though, and appropriate for the size that we were.
Right. So how many people do you think were really there when you first started coming?
I don't know, 50 maybe.
Okay.
If you count children.
Well, of course.
But I mean, that when we got into the building, which is that picture that was on Facebook, it was about the time that we got into that.
So define that building. So if you're looking at our entire campus now, the building that you're talking about is the brick one over in the admin wing area.
If you look at that
right?
picture, we're facing the building that was there. That was our initial phase, and to the right of that picture would have been where the administration wing is now. It wasn't there at the time, of course.
Right.
And then, of course, the auditorium we have now was way behind that. The courtyard was on the other side of that building.
Yep.
And the educational wing, or part of the educational wing, was to the left of that picture. That hadn't been built yet either.
Right.
So it was just that center section, which I think right now occupies the entrance there for the nursery area and the nursing mother's room, and where that area in there is where the old original building was.
Yeah, I'll give a quick pause and plug, because part of our project here at FBC is to kind of show a timeline and to show the growth of the church. And on September 6th, we'll have the doors open where you can enter into the library area, and it'll be up for months. But we'll get a chance to see the evolution of not just the building, but the people and the stories and the testimonies and the ministries and the staff. And there'll be pictures, there'll be descriptions. So what you're describing here, Rick, we'll be able to put words with pictures and see it all together. So it'll be something neat to really look out for. So tell me more about the worship time, because I know you have a heart for worship and singing, and what about those times back in the 80s really kind of were unique?
I led the worship a short period of time,
Mm-hmm.
and at various times we had other people lead during the earlier years, and our choir presence was very spotty. We didn't have a choir very often. We did for special occasions. We had some soloists that sang. We had a sign-up sheet at one time where we signed up to sing solos or special numbers. Could have been a duet or a quartet or something of that nature. And for a while we did that, in addition to a praise team that was put together sort of sporadically also.
Mm-hmm.
So we had choirs for cantatas or for special occasions, and we had some soloists, and I took part in all of that. We had various individuals come along and enhance that whole picture. And when Mike Lukens came and then Rose, the situation improved a great deal.
Yes.
Became more consistent.
Uh-huh.
We've really continued to have a difficult time maintaining the choir because of the nature of our meeting together. A lot of our adults are involved in teaching or taking classes.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't have any one particular period of time where all the adults are available who would want to sing and could sing to get together. So,
And kind of now you're transitioning into the 90s when a lot of that happened there.
yes. And when Scott Nelson came,
Then Scott Nelson, yes.
he took the bull on the horn, by the horns, as they say, and started putting together a fairly consistent choir presence,
Mm-hmm.
as well as some instrumentalists to a small band or orchestra. Susan Avery came and helped for a while. We had a young man, Cedric Bayer, who was a singer with the Navy, I believe, who helped us for a while. And, he actually led a couple of weeks, I believe. But it was always, done by the seat of our pants, so to speak.
That's interesting to me. You say that. So kind of, I'm in the worship ministry here now, obviously, and I'm fascinated with kind of what goes on behind the scenes and how do we come to plan the things that you do within a worship time. To me, I hold that very dear to my heart of what has God called us to do. So what were those times like when you were worship leading, when there was, obviously there's teaching and preaching. Harry Adams was a pastor for a time, and then Mark Carey came in 1990. So kind of how did God lead those times of worship for you guys then?
Well, I think that in the beginning, we were attracted to Fellowship Bible Church because of the fellowship and the Bible teaching.
Mm-hmm.
The warmth that we felt when we came in that very first day, continued on, and as we met more and more people. Harry's sermons were very helpful. Our singing was, I would have to say, in those days, our singing was typical of churches our size, I think, where much of what we did was considered to be almost like icing on a cake, a frill, an extra that we would add to our services to make it nicer or better. I do believe that there were individuals, and I would like to believe myself included, who approached worship in those days, as an honest expression of one's heart and one's relationship to God.
Yeah.
And by sharing it with the congregation, we hope to inspire people to do the same. But it wasn't until Mike came, I think, that that perspective was more effectively addressed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was an attempt, I think, a deliberate attempt from the pulpit and from other positions of influence to alter our thinking regarding worship so that it isn't just a frill, just isn't an added event to good preaching and good fellowship.
Not just something to check off a list or sing a cool song that, is either on the radio that you think sounds good or people would like,
Right.
But how can it hit
Something that people who like to sing get to do for fun.
Right.
And that's part of it, obviously. If God has given us a voice, a desire to sing, that's the first few steps.
So is it fair to say you've kind of seen the church grow in that area
Absolutely.
over the years?
Absolutely. Our choir times together now are almost like a mini church.
Yeah.
And there is a great deal of spiritual growth and content and inspiration taking place there, which is what I think it ought to be.
Mm-hmm.
The choir members and instrumentalists and tech team people, and we all are part of a team to enhance the worship of those who are in the congregation. But hopefully we've said this to ourselves, and hopefully it's an honest assumption that we come and we sing out of the abundance of our own hearts as a result of the experiences we've had with God all week long.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that we can inspire others to worship in spirit and in truth.
That's a great heart attitude to have. And I know, Sharon, you're not idly sitting by during these years of Rick singing and leading and being custodian. Share kind of some of the stories that you had, because I believe you were also even on staff, or at least a secretary for a time or two, and then you had mentioned children's ministry as well. Kind of what did you see in the heart of the church as you were serving those years ago?
Well, as soon as the building was finished and we moved in, Harry asked me to be his secretary, so I did that from January of '85 till probably June of '89, or April of '89, and but then I was doing like 150 bulletins a week.
Okay. Yeah.
And I can't remember all that I did, but I only did it part-time, just a couple hours a day.
Right. But you got to see all the fun, neat things
Yeah.
behind the scenes, right?
And I got to meet people coming in.
Yeah.
I mean, when the Spences and her parents came in to town, and they stopped by the church to check it out, I got to meet them and talk with them, and other people as they came in and wanted to check out the church and talk to Harry. It was good to talk with. I had, of course, finished before Mark came.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But we cleaned the church every weekend, and
The whole family.
Yeah.
Our older two kids were
Get it.
involved in that too.
Everybody didn't get their hands dirty.
Yeah.
Clean up after everyone.
We were at the church every day of the week, really seriously.
There's something about a small church feel where people feel ownership, I think, where there's this, you realize, hey, if I'm not doing this, who else is going to? And I think that could be a potential pitfall of a bigger church, that people might feel, hey, I can just show up and things will keep moving on because every week keeps happening. But there is stuff that happens behind the scenes, even in a big church like ours, where people are doing the work of the ministry. And I appreciate hearing how it's a family effort, right, to come to the church. And if there's any kind of call, I feel like that's something that we can still grow in. Being a bigger church, that we can find, where is our niche? Even in a COVID pandemic, I still think there's an opportunity to serve, to get plugged in. So that's my encouragement, but I wanted to hear from you guys as well. So how did that bless your family? What impact did that make with you all as a with the foster children that you have, and setting an example of you guys serving? What did you see in the life of your family as you were part of the church?
Well, our older children particularly, our oldest two are in their 50s, or close to it, living in Hawaii and Texas. They both remember fellowship fondly. I still remember a lot of individuals that they knew when they were kids growing up. The Rosensteels is one family I can remember that both my children knew well.
Jim Poole.
Jim Poole, of course. He knew our children really well. The Poole family, in fact, hosted a mini church of sorts.
Mhm.
We didn't call it that in those days. I forget what it was called in those days, but it was not something like a mini
Multiple
church.
names, right?
And Jim and our kids were together a lot.
He was a youth pastor.
I did the
kids
youth.
I was gonna say,
Not
so-
a pastor,
Wow.
but a
Yeah,
youth
I've
director.
seen and heard rumors of that too. So again, custodian, worship leader, and now youth leader.
Director or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
It was not, and Learning Center. I actually led the Learning Center one year, but that was because we didn't have staff at the time.
Right.
It was what was needed, and Sharon and I have both felt that the Lord has given us the desire to meet needs in sort of a help kind of a ministry kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our circumstances are such that some of those leadership opportunities didn't come to us, but
Right.
the opportunities to volunteer still exist.
Absolutely.
Still a need for that, and always will be. But our kids grew up fond memories of fellowship, even those who are far away now. In fact, our son in Texas attends another church very similar to fellowship because it was similar. But we've had a lot of musically talented people come through fellowship. I mean, located as close as we are to Shenandoah,
Mm-hmm.
you would think that we would have some people of musical ability come through, and we have. Scott Nelson was one of the leaders of the music ministry for a while. Of course, Susan Avery came along, and I've got to tell you the story about Susan
Okay.
Avery.
All right. Our ears are listening now.
When we were attending,
Which, by the way, Susan Avery is the wife of a pastor on staff, John
Yes.
Avery, who's our family life pastor. So, okay, just to set the stage.
and when she was a teenager, she and her family attended the same church we did, but we did not know them.
Huh.
We lived some distance away from the church and were really only there on Sundays. But Sharon was baptized there, and anyway, she sang one Sunday a special song, and I remember telling Sharon at the time, that lady could make a living doing that. And but
High praise.
forgot about that.
Yes.
After a while, and then we came to fellowship several years later, and they came to fellowship, and we got together and compared notes and realized that she was that young lady that we had listened to back in those 1970-somethings.
Wow.
And now, of course, she's helped out with our music ministry with her fantastic voice. And we've had Julie Myhill help out. We've had Karen Newland recently help out. We just had a lot of really good voices come through and inspire those of us who do enjoy singing
Sure.
to use our gifts to inspire others.
Well, pinpoint for me, along those paths, you're talking about how people have impacted you. Part of the culture here at Fellowship Bible Church is to prepare and deploy dependent disciples. So how have you guys, individually or as a couple, been discipled and have grown over these many years since 1983 of being here at Fellowship? How have you seen God use others to develop your spiritual journey and walk?
For a time in our groups, our family groups, several of the mini groups were doing a series called 2-7. And it taught you how to have devotion time, taught you how to memorize scripture, it taught you, it was put out by the Navigators, and taught you all aspects about how a Christian was supposed to develop their Christian life, and then how the last part of it was sharing your faith with others. And I think that at that time, that was a time where I had the most growth. And
Alan McCorkle helped lead that, didn't he?
he got the thing started, and his group was doing it also.
Neat. So not just study to learn to have it be just private and personal, but to learn how to then express your faith to others and to share that to others.
Yes.
Yeah.
That group time was, we spent a whole day praying, practicing the things that were suggested to us through the 2-7 series. And that to me, I think that was the first time I had spent that many hours consecutively praying. And it was good. It was a good experience. I think we found out that the time passed faster than we thought when we had intentional prayer lists and concerns, and when we realized that our prayer time wasn't simply appealing to the Lord for some sort of intervention in our life, but for growth, for other people, for understanding, for
For worship.
Worship.
Yeah. Well, you've already shared this, and I feel this is an obvious thing, but you have then taken that knowledge and impacted others, whether of how you serve through the worship ministry or through children. Is there a specific example where you can say, yeah, I loved being able to just invest my time into this specific ministry or these particular people, to pass on the torch, if you will, to convey what you've learned over the years to others around you?
Well, I've had lots of one-on-ones with different men in the church. I don't think I want to name names.
No, yeah, sure.
Their opportunities have come, either have been suggested to me by John Morrison or others, to meet with different fellas and encourage them, not necessarily to teach them a great deal, other than just to encourage them and to help them to apply the things that they know about God's encouragement and God's enabling to their own specific situations. So I even though I've taught for 20 years, and I did teach here as a Learning Center teacher, I still, here 37 years later, have to resist saying Sunday school. But anyway, it's I feel like my gift or my contribution to the church's life and all is more by an example and more by encouraging rather than leading a specific Bible study or topic. But I think that having said that fellowship and Bible teaching is what drew us to the church in the beginning, I think maybe what happened when shortly after Mark came, in the very first year of his ministry here, we lost one of our children, the death of a son. And when it comes to dealing with issues like that, that's when your church family both means more to you and it has more of an impact, I think, on you than it would normally have. Yeah. We want to address that? Mark was unique in his contribution.
Yeah, it was a very difficult time, and we had to step back from things, and it was a very rough time for me. And I had to seek counseling through the church, and it took me a long time to get through it. But I think at the other end of it, God brought me back. And then we adopted three other children, and they were very small. So we had to step back and sort of get into the raising of them, because one of those has some special problems. And so at the beginning years, we were very busy in the church, and we loved it. But when we started with our second family, things had to quiet down for a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't imagine. I'm sure some of the listeners have gone through that experience, but that cannot be easy to go through death of a child. What did you? And you said you've come out the other end. So what was it that gave you that ability to come out the other end, and what did God teach you through that time?
Well, I just kept praying and asked the Lord to give that hunger for his word back to me. I kept praying it over and over, and then I just realized I'm tired of being angry. I'm just only making myself feel bad. And so I asked the Lord to help me to change that, and he did. And
That's
I
powerful.
did get a new hunger for the word.
Yeah.
It's a similar kind of thing to what I have faced with my PTSD, and that is being reminded of the many passages, but just practically speaking, being reminded that God has never left us, and that He's always there. Mark did that when we were holding our passed away child in our arms. That was one of the first serious events, I guess, that he had to face, and he did it so well. John Morrison and his help with Sharon on dealing with the loss of our son, Stephen. It's easy to be angry with God and believe when we're going through those times that God is not there, but we have learned that He always is, even when it doesn't seem like He is. But
It's a great example of essentially placing your full, complete trust in God.
Right.
And knowing that ultimately He is the one who is the giver of life and holds each of us in His hands and loves us through it, despite tough times here in this present world. He's the one to put our trust in, right? It's powerful, and it's a
we have the power, we have the abundant life that we were promised, and we have to appropriate it from time to time. We have to be reminded that it's there, but we have it. I mean, we already have victory in Jesus, and I'm a little bit hesitant to say, but so many of the things that we think about when we are going through deep times and difficult times, or even as a church in our regular experiences, songs come to me more than passages of Scripture.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Lord, forgive me, Lord, but I'm have more facility at remembering the lyrics of a song or the title of a song.
Isn't that the purpose of why God has given us music?
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And when the lyrics of the songs you sing are biblically based, or even just biblical quotations, then it does make it easy to remember, the concept at least.
Well, those are great nuggets for us to take away. Having a heart of service like you guys have had to get plugged in, be willing to clean floors and bathrooms with your family, to the point of recognizing to pass the torch to others, and to know that even in the good times and down times that God is still there. Those are great stories. You're laughing. So I've got to leave on a funny note. There has got to be some funny story that you have for us that you can pass on.
It's not spiritually based.
That's okay. We've gotten some good spiritual nuggets out of this, but give us something that we can take away that you can share with us that's funny.
About, having clean floors and so forth. The building has changed over the years since I was doing it alone, but I was helping Larry for a while here before I had my heart surgery. And there are over 70 toilets in this church.
Currently 70, yes. Okay. So you were not just a janitor back in the 80s, but what you're saying, and I'll just clarify this, you have been a janitor here recently, at least in the last, I think it might have been the last decade.
The last paying job I had was a part-time job here.
So you have been able to assist this current campus and this current building. Yeah. So how many toilets again? 70?
Well, it's something like 70-something.
But who's counting?
And if you think about how much time it takes to do one, you'll realize that the staff has a lot on their hands.
That is a full-time job. Full-time job. Note to everyone out there, again, back to the needs of the building and the needs of the church. And man, the work of the ministry goes well beyond just counseling and preaching or singing, but there's something that the life of the body can come together to serve together, can carry and hold every joint that is meant for the body of Christ. You can be a foot, you can be an ear, I can be an eyeball, but we're all in it together. and
I couldn't pass up the chance to say that singing is one of those things we're going to do even in heaven. We're not going to give up any. Most of the things we do in this life we're going to end when we cross Jordan. but we're going to continue to sing. There's going to be a choir in heaven, and it's going to be
Amen.
a wonderful thing.
Amen. That is a great send-off. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's been a pleasure to have you be the first interview of a couple that we're going to be able to pass on to the church. And I hope even others outside of FBC are able to listen to this and be inspired and encouraged to what God is doing here in Winchester, Virginia, and beyond through people like Rick and Sharon Lumpp. So remember, just as you're listening and as you're watching, if you want to contribute, you can always do that. Specifically, fbcva.life. You can submit any questions or thoughts or ideas you want to pass on as you listen. And I'm, once again, excited about what God is doing here in FBC and what we can anticipate for him to do in these years to come. So remember, September 6th is going to be our big celebration. Put that on your calendar and come and participate and enjoy good food and good fellowship together. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And until we chat again, let Christ be the focus of your life each and every day.